don't know if that'll work.
24 hours later, when your dishwasher is full, let Finish Quantum clean your dishes. If the stains are gone,
it says going live. So hi guys, it's Alan again. And I titled this one about using terms like false flag, and sometimes they use this in what is known as the conspiracy way of thinking, calling things false flag. It's when a group, whether it be a government, a team, something evil is done, and instead of just admitting it, they blame it on their opponent and trying to get people worked up. Like the Gulf of Tonkin, trying to blame that on North Korea to get the American public mad at the Vietnamese to influence the beginnings of the war in Vietnam. It's or the Syria chemical thing, where whether it was actually used real chemical attacks on actual people or just paid actors. It was to blame it on Assad, so that the American people, Obama said if those chemical attacks were used, then the American government would step in and help. So the idea was the people of Syria bombed their own people, and then a false flag would be if they did it. If they did that to their own people and then blamed it on Assad, so that the Americans would then be forced to keep their word, like Obama would say, if they do this, it's crossing a line and we'll intervene. He brought in a battleship or something, but nothing really came of it. Assad is still in power. Anyway, Havana Syndrome is similar. When you are a TI, and for people who, I've had 30, at that time, before I found out what I was, 30 years of every day this side pain, and people who've watched my videos know what I'm talking about. And I didn't know what caused it. My doctors didn't know, or at least couldn't. Now we didn't, it's not like they came forward, but I appreciate that they sent me to specialists that at least gave me something for pain. And I would have said they were my favorite people in the world because they helped me not live in pain. But it took 30 years of realizing I didn't have to live in pain all those years in the first place. It was with this crazy, weird V2K that I had never heard of, or target individuals, which I, again, never heard of, or government experimenting on people. I know they did it years ago with MK Ultra, but it just never occurred to me that I was a guinea pig, or that the people of Dallas or Salem, very staunchly evangelical, Christian, they wouldn't do that. They're good people. Raised my entire life in that town. They're good people. They wouldn't do that. And it's like, then you come to the realization, V2K, and most people with V2K, I don't know if it's 90 or 100%, also get there wasn't a term for it, but it was just being hit with these directed energy weapons or implanted biometrics, which during an operation, Cheryl Atkinson on Full Measure had a few episodes where she talks about people being used, and a couple episodes of animals being used, but other episodes of people being used as guinea pigs without their knowledge, without their consent. One episode dealt with premature babies, preemies, who are suffering and fighting for every breath as it is, being a premature baby. And this was done during Fauci and one of my favorite Christian thinkers, Francis Collins. But experimenting and not telling the parents, or if they did get a signature, it was to misguide, your kids will be safe. It's just a no-nonsense test from the NIH. It'll help kids, maybe help it was to get a parent's fake, not known consent, knowing consent signature to make it look like, and it really, I think it was Consumer, I forget the name of it, but they were a whistleblower group. And they were showing how they were taking even the breathing apparatus and giving false readings. So even if the nurse or doctors or the parents were to look at the breathing pulse oximeters, it would give a false reading to where they wouldn't have the accurate knowledge. Like it would say, it would actually be at 89%, but on the pulse oximeter, it might say 96%. Everything's fine. So they wouldn't be able to know what to go on. It was to see which babies who are already fighting for every breath to just say, well, they're just guinea pigs. They're not as important as me. I'm a doctor. I'm a nurse. They're just pieces of meat with a heart and a brain that can be disposable. A lot of these are Christians doing this, by the way. These are people that talk very glowingly about religion. They're often pro-life people, that babies are very important. But when it comes to money and grants, all that, and religious morality and, ethics, bring me back to the good old days, drain the swamp for the Republicans out there or Democrats. It doesn't matter. Wrong is wrong. And taking babies or teenagers or human beings, it doesn't matter whether they're walking the streets or prisoners. Unless they're the worst of murderers, I mean, worse. The idea of taking people and experimenting on them with torture just to see how long they can last, and doing it not just it was when I found out what was done to me over these years. And Dallas, Oregon is a very evangelical, proud, even our schools are public schools, not Christian schools, public, have weekday school of the Bible. But I guess if they can get money and have it not known publicly that they're torturing people and babies for money, that I guess that's okay. So reality, when Jesus said you can't love two masters, you either hold on to one or hate the other. You can't serve both God and money. And they're going to say, well, you can love one less than. It's like, no, these are people without a doubt, just instantly go in and for it. And they don't blow the whistle. They don't let people know. They're putting babies and the parents of babies and people like me who broke my arm once. And I was born in San Diego near Camp Pendleton, where my biological dad was a Marine in Vietnam. And while he's fighting, and then, I was born in 71, and then I broke my arm in high school. And what did they do? Oh, bring me to the hospital and the doctor patched my arm up. But evidently within a few months of that, I started getting these sharp pains. And I didn't know what caused it. It could have been, you don't know. But the last thing I would think is that these nice people would purposely implant or use me as a guinea pig. Such a slander. But then the one thing good about, 30 years secretly to myself, thank God, what is this, pain? Why don't, it's always right in the heart, and it's just this boom. But at that time, at 15, 16, you're too young to have heart attacks but what is it? And then subside, but then over years, it just became necrotic. And when it hits your heart that way, and or in the head, it makes you somewhat, it takes a lot of the emotions out. And it's just what happens. It takes some of the emotions out. And they call that term anhedonic. And now sometimes when you get pain meds, that can do some of it. It can dull your senses too. And so they can blame it on pain meds, but this was happening because of the dew attacks. And how do I know that? It's because in the last few years, I've had about from 36, 37 years, and this is recently too, in the last few years, I didn't know what caused my side pain, but out of the blue, for no reason, it would just stop. My side pain would just out of the blue stop. And I felt normal. I felt good. I could feel emotions, feel, actual feeling. And it would happen for a couple of hours and just be thankful to God. And it's like, oh, I'm healed, but then go back to sleep. after 3 or 4 hours of this, and then wake up and then it's right back. And it would happen again, like a year and a half later, and then another 2 years later, just out of the blue. And then a couple times in the middle of meditation. So you think, well, maybe I meditated in a different way, but it just, other times you go back to meditation and it doesn't happen again. And then it happens again, when you're just doing the dishes and nothing. And then you realize you don't know at that time target individuals, V2K, but then you're just thankful it happened. And then I started getting the V2K, the voices through the side of the walls, and you realize somebody's playing a joke with you. You don't know who, you don't have any enemies, you didn't do anything to piss anybody off, ever. And you're wondering why. So for the first time in my life, I went to the police to ask for help. And, hey, what's going on? Did I do something? It's like, no. And then they instantly went down the road of, you might need some psychological. They started that whole psychological, you might need some help type stuff. And without even knowing it, for the first time at 45, I asked for their help on something, and that's their answer. And I realized it's like, shit, not only are they not going to, help me with what it is, I didn't know what it was. They started, for months before, people were doing that weird thing with the phone and taping me and acting weird and rude and, just under their breath and then coughing around me. And then you don't know what it is. You just know somebody's acting weird. You didn't realize there's a whole group of people. This happens to one person, two people in a town, or, who knows how big a city, and just hope and think that they will either, because of pressure, kill themselves, or they won't meet other people or find out that this is happening to other people, and that these people will die through either depression or torture, pain, or suicide. And then Havana Syndrome happened at the same time, 2015, 2016. This was in the news. And what it was is that this was our government's attempt at a false flag. It was trying to blame, of all people, Havana, Cuba. And then it was always happening to American diplomats, CIA, FBI, happening to people in, our diplomats in Russia, in China, Kamala Harris's people, our Secret Service people in America, Pompeo's people, CIA, some Greek name, Markopolis or something like that, Olivia Troya, Mike Pence's chief of staff, or one of his top people. And and then I went to the Portland rally, and it's like, oh, when it's regular people this happens to, this is known as targeted individuals. And before Havana Syndrome, the bioethics, the White House, President Obama set up the White House bioethics, and its main purpose and only purpose is to make sure that our government isn't experimenting on people in a torturous way, and that everything's on the up and up with informed consent, and that America under Barack Obama is the good guys, and under George Bush is the good guys, and we wouldn't torture our own people or other people. After Guatemala and Obama apologized to their president, not to their people, didn't give them financial assistance after, just, hey, sorry about that, Mr. President of Guatemala. Of course, their people are still, some of them are still alive and suffering every day. And, big what? Sorry, my bad. And Bill Clinton apologized in 95. And you think, well, they learned their lesson. They're not going to do it. But in 2011 and 2012, the White House bioethics. And two of the 9 or 10 people there is Dr. Fauci's wife, Dr. Christine Grady. It's a bioethics board. And then Amy Goodman from the president of the University of Pennsylvania. This is an ethics board to make it look like our government cares. So that people can go in, complain that they feel like they're being experimented on. They have a voice. And instead of just stopping it or admitting it, yeah, sorry, here's some money, here, get some real treatment, or even stop pushing the button to frequency like they did to me about 5 or 6 times, and then they just started it back up again. They just because it's RF microwave radiation weapons, directed energy weapons, DEWs, we don't see it. It's like a wireless, you don't see it hitting you, you know. They can be miles away, like a remote control, push a button, and then hit people, and you're just in pain. You don't know why. Your doctors didn't tell you if they implanted a biometric, which is, you know, like a pacemaker, without your knowledge. They can be by your heart or something in your scalp, like a brain-computer interface, without your knowledge, and not just reading your vitals or reading. It's to push a button and to put a painful stimuli to behavior modification, just a painful jolt, like a dog, you know, having a neck and one of those neck things. And then if the dog's doing or going too far, just a quick pulse, just, you know. And I can say 100%, if somebody described this to me, I would have a hard time believing, well, I would have heard now with Havana Syndrome, these people have heard of it. Most people have heard about it. And at 2011, 2012, the bioethics with Dr. Christine Grady, Dr. Fauci's wife, Amy Goodman, and different people, most people didn't know. But now, Havana Syndrome was our government's attempt to blame another country for doing it. Russia, China, they have the technology too, but it's mainly American diplomats. There was a couple times where it was this Canadian, but Canada uses American torture and CIA torture. It's like Ewan McGregor at McGill University under the Allen Institute. I mean, whenever there's money, it's amazing how it's a shame that how Christians will throw out their ethics. And some Muslims, you know, I mean, some atheists would, but they're trying to blame it on transhumanists. They're trying to blame it on Satanists, pedophiles, Q, you know, I mean, there was a Q person. There was a person saying that there was a Q person that was going to expose the targeted individual program. And he's with Trump. And it was really another form of Q. But I think the moderator kind of listened to that and, okay, well, we're you know, just because they're on our program, it doesn't mean that we're advocating for everything they're saying. But anyway, they are doing this. It's still with V2K. It's the Alan Frey microwave hearing effect. They can bounce off. It's like when people can bypass bone conduction, they can bypass the actual ear and use a part of the inward structures of bouncing sounds or frequencies off of bones or the interior of the skull, and it can, through the vibrations, can create its own sound, but it's very faint, and it's just very, very faint, but you can genuinely hear it. I think Nick Begich showed an example of how it's done on William Shatner's show, and about target individuals, brain invaders, I think. Anyway, this is genuinely happening, and realize this is a false flag. They're trying to blame it. And the shame is, this is really other countries. This is done allegedly in some other countries, Poland, maybe in Spain. They have a group in Spain complaining of it, in Poland. Russia and China's got some people that are complaining of the same things. Christians, please quit taking the money for this. You are guaranteeing that your kids and grandkids will be slaves, meaning that you can do nothing wrong. Like me, I never, I mean, people make mistakes, but I've never knowingly hurt anybody intentionally. I think I got drunk once and somebody had to give me a ride for 2 hours, 3 hours away, and had to pick me up. But no enemies, and they still did it to me anyway. They sign non-disclosures. They get money from the NIH and the grants, and it's like those babies that are preemies. They experiment cruelly on anything, and people throw out their ethics in a second, thinking that by the time it's found out, they'll be dead. And it's like, no, the good thing is now with Havana Syndrome, we're alive, and people are waking up and realizing that this is genuinely happening to people, and it's torture. and all that drain the swamp, that whether Republicans or Democrats, you wouldn't want it happening to you. You wouldn't want it to happen to your mother. And all it is, and it's law enforcement. And people want to think they're being patriotic by helping police, helping the FBI, but they're just as corrupt. And it's a shame when that level of corruption in Washington, D.C. can reach evangelical towns like Dallas or Salem, and people pretend that they're good. You can't balance, I helped good. You got to treat all people. It's like if you're nice to 9 people, but you only torture 1 person out of 10 or 2 people out of 100, you're still a torturer. You're still a murderer. And you still, I hope there's a day where the people that do this go to prison. I don't think their families have to pay for it, but every single person knows about it. Now, I'm not interested myself. I mean, I would like money too, but I would rather throw the money away so that these people can feel free to talk openly and admit it, so that it'll help other people. I mean, who wouldn't want to have money? But I don't wish to live in a mansion. I want them to take care of my side, which is what my doctors, that's what I went there for. I shouldn't have gone through this pain in the first place 37 years ago. I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have been signed up for it. I shouldn't have been part of what they call the Obama kill list. But it was Republican kill list, Democrat kill list. Behind their smiles and votes, they know about this. Senators, congressmen, state reps. This is well known. And the idea that they would cover this up and pretend that they didn't know all the details, and they can have it out in the open every night on the news with Havana Syndrome, and it's still, Mark Dice, to his credit, showed no, it's the same patents. Jennifer Griffith from Fox News showed the patents the other day, 3 days ago on Fox. They were showing it's not just the CIA guy. Patient Zero was showing it's laughable that they act like this stuff doesn't exist. They know it exists, and then they showed tons of pages of different government patents that our own government has used in the past 20 some odd years ago, 30 years ago, in making this technology to torture people using RF radiation, extremely low frequency radiation and sounds, and ELF. And ELF, you can't see it, but it creates depression sometimes in people. Depression, suicide ideation. And right now, of course, with the pandemic, there's a lot of teenagers and a lot of young people doing this. And the idea that the government is doing this using ELF, extremely low frequencies, on its own people, not just through V2K, but on its own people, and then acting like, oh, we don't know, it's mysterious. This microwave weaponry has been happening for the last 50, 60. There's textbooks on this. You can get this stuff. And so it's not as secret, not when hundreds of people went to the White House, and you can look it up on YouTube. I have it on my created playlist on my YouTube, Alan Brewer, Nielsen-Brewer, however you want to write it. But I have it there. And this was before Havana Syndrome. So now, can you imagine being a TI before Havana Syndrome? Now with Havana Syndrome, at least people are aware, they've heard of this. And so I'm glad that our government allowed that to be on the news, so that we're not as, isolated. At least it gives us something. There needs to be, it's a shame, it's ridiculous that our government wasted some of that trillions of dollars missing for black ops, for torture, for experimentation. I can hear the V2K still yapping right now. It's like he's not going to get it, he's not going to give in. And just like this, I don't know if anybody outside of the fusion center is even going to see this, but it's real. Sometimes I think all the TI books may not even go to Amazon. I think it just goes maybe to the Fusion Center and they send some books and they print the printing press there. I think they try to control everything. Even if it's on the internet, they have their own sites. They watch what we can see, what we can't see. I have had one new subscriber in months, and a lot of the TI videos out there, and you don't know if they're books or who all, but there's definitely infiltration. Whenever there's something like Havana Syndrome or the kidnapping of the Michigan governor or January 6th, there's always FBI infiltration, stoking the fire, trying to get it going, causing it, starting it. The Minnesota fires in Minneapolis and all that. It was Minnesota. It was FBI and police starting. And I was never an anti-police person. I always liked them. They were good to people in Dallas. I felt for 30 years were good to me. I didn't have enemies. I wasn't harassed, but I was always in pain and I didn't know what caused it. And then to find out for all those years, they knew about it. V2K, and now they were making fun of me because they were doing that thing with the computer, and when it freezes and then suddenly the mouse starts moving on its own on the computer. And I thought, well, they're doing fucking with me. So what would clear it? Like, they'd probably think I'm a dumbass. So I put that in there. And suddenly my computer went normal. That was their code word for me, for not realizing that all my pain was because of experimentation. And, I was a dumbass for not realizing that they were torturing me for all these years. And I was still trusting that they were good people. And what a dumbass I was. Well, I thought they were nice, conservative, religious, Republican, some Democrats, maybe some atheists. I thought they were good people. And the whole time it was them that were torturing me. Them forcing me to get all this pain medication. Bringing people in my life to, but even then I just tried to ignore. But I'm thankful for Dr. Matt. I'm thankful for Ella. I'm thankful for Dr. Robinson or Derek Robinson and Frank Allen and the people out there, Mark Williams in London, the people that are letting it known, that are making the videos for TIs to relate to. And I appreciate, especially if we can do things outside that raise the attention, because I don't know how many regular people see our videos outside of our own TI groups and the fusion centers, and then they add names and fake dates and fake names and fake, we support you, we love you, and they might be fusion center, I don't know. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. I'm just glad with Havana Syndrome people do know about it. And I even think our government's getting tired of it. And I think they want to just put some laws to it because it's just too many people that are still out there. And they tried to blame it on other countries. But the CIA guy even admitted that it's not other countries. It's not a foreign adversary. So who is it then? The only other alternative is it's our own government. It's not an adversary government. It's our own government. It's not a foreign adversary. So that means 60 Minutes should have just said, well, who is it then? Well, it's our own government. It's the U.S. government doing it. So anyway, with that out in the open, it's just one more little step. They admitted it's like 12 people in the room. They're saying, well, we know it's not these 11 people. So who's left? And it's like, oh, they haven't said it's us. But that's the only rational conclusion that can be drawn. And so, again, this brings into question the level of corruption when it comes to police, witnesses, judges, patent offices. Who's going to be honest about books? But at least we have people, and at least the facts are actually on our side. So, anyway, this is Alan. I'll talk to you guys later. Okay. Okay. Bye-bye.